feel like we should start. Ooh! Hello everyone, I'm 𝐂𝐴𝐧𝐧𝐸 and welcome back to my channel. This is my first ever sit-down video on this channel, and it's also my first time talking about the books that I've read. So for today's video, as you can see from the title, we're going to be talking about all the books that I read in January. I actually initially planned to combine my January and February reads, but knowing myself, I tend to ramble on. When I get so invested in what I'm talking about, I figured let's just separate it in two videos. I don't really talk much about books here, so this is something that I've been wanting to do for the longest time, so I hope that you're as excited about it as I am. I'm still not sure if I'm gonna speak in straight English or Taglish. I guess we'll see. I feel like we'll do a lot of code switching here. I am well prepped for this video. I have my matcha here, and then I also have my list here. I have my 2026 reading journal and also my Kinbor planner, because this is where I list down the books that I've also read. I know I'm gonna talk a lot, so without further ado, let's start. So the first book that I read this year is Yellowface by R.F. Kuang. If I'm looking down, it's because I have my reading journal here. Here's my spread for Yellowface. So I read this from December 31 till January 5. If you guys didn't know, I mostly read now in audiobook form. The audiobook was 8 hours and 39 minutes long, and it was narrated by Helen Laser. I love Helen Laser. She's one of my favorite audiobook narrators. I know you've seen this cover a lot. This had a huge moment in 2023 or 2024. It was really hyped. So this follows June, or Juniper, who steals her late friend's last manuscript after witnessing her death and publishes her friend's, Athena Liu's, work as her own. Tackles various topics such as theft, racism, guilt, cultural appropriation, and the publishing industry. So I guess dito na ako magta-Taglish, guys, kasi explain ko sa inyo about saan ba yung libro. As I mentioned, Yellowface is about Juniper. Si Juniper, meron siyang kaibigan na si Athena Liu. Athena Liu is Chinese-American, if I'm not mistaken, and they've been friends for quite some time. They're both authors. So one night, in-invite ni Athena si Juniper sa apartment niya. Kaso, habang andun sila sa apartment niya, si ate mo girl Athena nag-choke sa pandan pancake. I don't know if it's a pancake or waffle. I just know it's pandan flavored. That's how specific it was. Si ate mo girl Juniper in shock because she tried to help, but ultimately her friend died in front of her. It was very traumatic for her. She did not expect it. None of them expected that to happen kasi parang hangout lang dapat siya, have a glass of wine and catch up, ganun. They're not best friends, but they're just kind of friends. And then suddenly may mangyayaring ganun, diba? Kasi itong si Juniper, bago siya umalis sa apartment ni Athena, bago dumating yung paramedics and police and other authorities, kinuha niya yung last manuscript ni Athena. And Athena is a well-known author. Juniper has not had any luck with publishing her own work, or meron isa pero it wasn't as successful as she wanted it to be. Ito nga si ate mo girl, ninakaw niya, kinuha niya, ninenok niya yung work ni Athena. So in the story, you follow Juniper as she publishes Athena's work as her own. Inedit niya lang, nirevise sila ng onte, but she still published it as her own without giving any credit to Athena. Sinabi niya lang na parang naging inspiration niya lang si Athena kasi nga friends sila, ganyan. So ayun, andun yung story. That's the premise of this novel. I guess what I can say about this book, this is my first R.F. Kuang book. I've heard a lot about her since I knew that she wrote the Poppy War series. As someone living alone, it gave me a new fear of possibly choking and not having anyone to help me. It gave me that new fear, and I also don't recommend reading this at the time that I read it because it's not a good start of the year. The writing is good, no doubt about that, but just being in Juniper's or June's point of view, in her mind, and how she's rationalizing her actions, it's baffling. Sobrang unlikable niya, sobrang nakakainis. Yung audacity niya to excuse her actions and how well she manipulates not just the people around her but also the reader. Like me, reading it, talagang ang galing niya i-warp yung story. Not necessarily a bad thing, but also a weird thing is that she's the main protagonist and she's also like the villain. Like, you want Athena to get justice, gusto mong mapanagutan ni Juniper yung ginawa niya. But at the same time, yung anxiety na mararamdaman mo while going through everything with Juniper, talagang ang lala niya. Talagang grabe yung anxiety ko when reading this book. It is a thriller. For me, it's already a thriller. Kahit na for others, it's very mild. You want her to get caught, but at the same time, you're anxious na she's gonna get caught. I've I've heard some critiques about this book na parang very surface level daw yung analysis on the publishing industry or yung culture appropriation. I get where they're coming from, but for me as someone who's starting to read literary fiction pa lang, I think this is a good book to start if you're still dipping your toes in literary fiction or fiction genre. For me lang, it did meet my expectations of how well of an author R.F. Kuang is. Yung introspectiveness ng character niya is really done well. I'm gonna read you my written review of this book. The writing is very thought-provoking. The premise is interesting and new for me. The main character, June, is diabolical. I didn't like her one bit. Some parts baffling, some disturbing, touches on a lot of things. A fresh new read will definitely read more of her work. So as I mentioned, this is my first R.F. Kuang book and it definitely convinced me to read more of her works. I rated this book 4.25 stars. I highly suggest listening to the audiobook narrated by Helen Laser if you can. Naalala ko, there was one time I was washing the dishes and listening to the audiobook and then I got scared listening to the audiobook because of how well Helen Laser narrated it. As in, parang napatingin ako sa likod ko ng parang takot na ewan. The ending was something. Let me know what your thoughts are on Yellowface. This book convinced me to read more of R.F. Kuang's books and I definitely will. Not in the first half of this year, but definitely in the future. All of her other works are on my TBR. It's just a matter of when I read them. So that's the first book of 2026. Okay, are we ready to talk about the next book? The second book that I read this year is Heated Rivalry by Rachel Reid. I read this book from January 15 to January 28. I listened to it via audiobook, which had a length of 9 hours and 32 minutes. This is the second book of the Game Changers series by Rachel Reid. Okay, I feel like I don't need to tell you what this book is about. I feel like you've heard of it. I don't know anyone who has not heard of it or at least seen edits of it, seen the actors' faces. I feel like this has been so big that anyone who has social media will know what Heated Rivalry is, but I'm still gonna explain it. Heated Rivalry follows rival pro hockey players Shane Hollander. Kinikilig na kagad in-explain pa lang. Okay, wait. Canada's Shane Hollander and Russia's Ilya Rozanov, as their careers and attraction for one another grow throughout the years. I read this after I watched the show. I watched the HBO series around second week of January. Laging lumalabas yung edits sa For You page ko. Grabe yung edits sa feed. My friends have been recommending it. They've been talking about it non-stop. Ang edit na nag-convince sa akin ay yung Rock Me edit ba yun? ng One Direction, yung I want you to rock me, dun, rock me, dun, rock me, ganon. Ayun, as soon as I watched that, I was like, fine, I'll watch the show. You guys have been convincing me, my For You page has been convincing me, fine, I'll watch the damn show. I got the cheapest subscription just to watch it and see what the hype is all about. And I watched it in one sitting. Gabi hanggang madaling araw, pinanood ko siya diretso. Alala ko nung sinimulan ko siya, masama pakiramdam ko. Pagkatapos parang nabuhayan ako. I just remember like being in a psychosis na after watching the show, all I could think about was the show. All I could consume was related to Heated Rivalry. Watching edits nonstop, it was really wild. I feel like if you've watched Heated Rivalry, you'll know what I'm talking about. I need more. That mindset, when you finish a good show, movie, concert, and you want more of it, so you need to consume more content to pacify the need for more of what you've just consumed. Yeah, so I listened to it. I skipped the first book, and all I can say is the show adaptation was really faithful to the book. And I appreciate that because usually when books get adapted into movies or TV shows, parang nawawala yung soul nung libro. I feel like that's the norm when books get adapted. Talagang parang kinuha lang yung name ng characters, a bit of the plot sa book, tapos iba na yung nangyayari, ganon. But what made me love the show more is how faithful it was to the book. I remember when I was listening to the audiobook, parang nagre-replay yung TV show sa ulo ko na, shucks, ang galing ni Jacob Tierney with how he was able to put these characters and this world into life. Of course, there are details in the book that was not included in the TV show, but I feel like tama lang, sakto lang, yung mga kailangan lang talaga yung nasama sa libro. If you were to ask me what I would enjoy more, like which one I prefer, the book or the show, I feel like biased ako sa show because of how well the cinematography is, the storytelling was. It was just really well done. The book was good, but the show was even better. Merong ending yung book na hindi sinama sa show, which I appreciate because parang merong reward for those who read the books na merong additional content sa book na wala sa show na you would only know if you read the book. Aside from the minor details that were not included in the show, I also enjoyed the ending in the book that wasn't included in the TV show. And I feel like that ending might be included in season 2. I hope it is, but it was a really sweet, heartwarming ending. Initially, I rated this 5 out of 5 stars. I feel like it's the bias from the show, kaya bigla ko siya ni-rate ng ganun kataas. Yung love ko for the show parang nag-mix with the book. But after some thinking, I decided on a 4 out of 5 stars rating for Heated Rivalry. Very, very much excited for the next season. If you ask me, have I read The Long Game? No. I need something to keep me sane after season 2. I have no plans on reading that book before season 2 comes out. That's a special tool that can help us later. But for now, I'm good. I'm excited for the next show. I'll be talking about it, probably reacting on it. Let me know your thoughts on the show and the book if you've read it. And ayun. That's the second book that I read in 2026. Now we're going to be talking about the third and last book that I read for the first month of this year, which is People Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry. So I read this at the end of the month, January 29 till January 31, 2026. I remember finishing this right before my in-person book club meeting. This is Just for the Readers PH Book Club's Book of the Month for the month of January. If you guys didn't know, I'm part of a book club named Just for the Readers. It's an in-person book club in Metro Manila that I founded with my boyfriend Anton. If you're interested to join our in-person book club, message at Just for the Readers on Instagram. I started to read the book, but I feel like I'm just really in my audiobook era right now. I consume more books or enjoy consuming books through audiobook. I listen to this book in Audible. The length of the audiobook is 10 hours and 46 minutes and it's narrated by Julia Whelan. People Meet on Vacation. I don't know if you guys have seen the Netflix movie adaptation. I watched that first before reading the book. Before I talk about the book, I'm gonna tell you the premise. I feel like you'll know naman na if you watched the Netflix adaptation, but in case you didn't know, this book follows Poppy and Alex, two best friends who meet each other every year to spend their summer vacation together. But something happened 2 years ago that ruined everything, and they have 1 week to fix it. Little backstory with me and Emily Henry. I read my first Emily Henry book back in 2021 and it was Beach Read. And after reading it, it became my all-time favorite book for about 3 years. Talagang grabe impact sa akin noon, January and Gus. Until now, it's one of my top books. I think pantay sila ng Just for the Summer. I love that book. I reread that every year. And then mayroon ng movie adaptation, diba? I don't know guys, as in grabe yung effect sa akin ng Beach Read. Since then, natakot ako magbasa ng other Emily Henry book because I was scared that they wouldn't live up to the hype. I was scared that I won't love her writing as much as I did in Beach Read. So I remember I started reading People Meet on Vacation years ago, siguro 2022 or 2023. I remember attempting to read the book twice, but always stopping. I don't know if I was just in a reading slump then, or it was a book that was putting me in a reading slump, but then it became my book club's book of the month. Throughout the month, I tried to read the physical copy that I had, but I really couldn't. So I just resorted to listening to the audiobook. So as you can see, I listened to this in like 2 to 3 days lang, and I finished it right before my book club meeting. So as I mentioned, I watched the movie first before reading the book. In terms of movie adaptation, I feel like hindi siya ganun ka-faithful. If you were to compare the book and the movie, parang magkaibang story siya. Ayun yung mention ko sa inyo guys. The movie adaptation wasn't as faithful to the book, and it was still a good movie if you watch it as a rom-com movie lang. But I feel like if you're someone who loved the book or who read the books first, you would be disappointed to watch the show kasi parang marami siyang na-left out. That's what we discussed in my book club, how much was lost in the adaptation. I'm trying not to give spoilers. For example, in the book, si Alex and si Sarah, they met in college. But in the movie, Alex and Sarah are high school sweethearts. Even the ending was different, if I'm not mistaken. I remember not really liking the ending or the confrontation sa book kasi parang medyo public siya. Ayoko ng intimate conversations or resolving of problems in public. So I personally would enjoy rewatching the movie than rereading the book. Does that make sense? I do appreciate the details in the book, but I enjoyed watching the movie more. Plus, Tom Blythe, Emily, the actors, they really tried to get the essence of the characters. Yeah, those are my thoughts. I agree with those people saying that it would have been better if it was just a limited TV series. One episode is one summer and then one flashback. I feel like that would have been better. Mas ma-explain and mas mapapakita yung relationship progression ni Alex and Poppy. Baka nilang talaga ako ganun ka-fan ng Friends to Lovers. That's something that I'm trying to figure out. I rated this book 3.5 over 5 stars. Not bad, diba? 3.5. That's above average. I would still recommend it, but I would recommend it only to people who are specifically looking for a summer Friends to Lovers romance. If you ask me for romance book recommendations, this would not be on the top of my list. I feel like I would reread it in the future, not in audiobook form, but in print form. One of my life goals is to finish that book front to back. Yes, and then we'll talk about it again. For now, 3.5 out of 5 stars. Kindly reminding you guys to not put any spoilers in the comment section below if you are gonna share your thoughts on these books. But yeah, those are the 3 books that I read in the month of January. I hope that you enjoyed listening to me yap about books. I love talking about books. Halata ba? Halata ba, guys? I'm still trying to be comfortable talking and expressing my feelings in front of the camera. So I hope that I was able to express myself properly. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed watching this. January yung month na pinakaunti yung binasa kong libro. Kasi January, I read 3 books. February, I read 5 books. And March, I read 8 books. So, di ba parang padami ng padami? I'm also gonna be filming a February wrap-up. So, I hope that you're subscribed if you haven't yet so that you're notified on that. And also, like this video so that I know that you want me to post more book content. Books or reading is a huge part of my life. I've been wanting to talk about the books that I read this month. We will be doing it no matter how delayed we are. I hope you enjoyed listening to me as much as I did talking to you about books. If I'm not on YouTube, I'm on TikTok and Instagram and Facebook at 𝐂𝐴𝐧𝐧𝐞𝐬. So yeah, that's all for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one, and always remember to let anyone dull your sparkle.